Hey guys, so we are going to talk about the elements of art today. We just did all of our vocab. So now we're going to do some visual examples inside our sketchbook. If you don't have a sketchbook yet, that's fine. Get some copy paper or some scrap paper, whatever you have available. Whenever you do get a sketchbook, I would like you to staple this in it. But in the meantime, you can put it in your art folder to keep it safe. So the first thing and the most basic element of art is line. So on your page, I want you to write line. And we're going to do a bunch of examples for line. Again, make sure you're following along. I'm going to be checking for participation for a grade, okay? So we have diagonal lines. We have vertical. We have horizontal. Make sure you're labeling. I'm going to come back and I'm going to do the examples in just a minute, but we're going to label them out first. We have thick lines, thin lines. We have dashed lines and dotted. Actually, I'm going to rearrange these just a little bit. Dotted, dashed. These are more implied lines, okay? So we'll do examples of those. Erase this. And I'm going to put wavy here. And then we also have zigzag, parallel, and perpendicular, which these are math terms you might be familiar with. So, all right, sorry, there's those. Let me zoom out a little bit. Okay, so diagonal lines, those are the ones that are slanted, okay? So diagonal, you could do any slant, that's fine, but we're going to do diagonal. Vertical goes up and down, okay? Horizontal goes side to side. Then we have thick lines. You don't want to just do a box because that turns it into a rectangle, so don't do that. But you have thick lines that we just kind of fill in. Thin lines. And then we have wavy lines. Implied lines are lines that are dotted or dashed. That gives the implication that a line is there. So say like if you're thinking of like a bump V's, a lot of times you'll see like where their flight path, they use implied lines to kind of show where they've been. So we have dotted lines, dashed lines, okay? Let me zoom in a little bit. And then we have zigzags, which is much like wavy lines. And then we have parallel. Remember, these are two lines that run along side by side each other that don't touch. And then we have perpendicular lines that meet and make a 90-degree angle, but you could also kind of do those other geometrical angles in there too. So lots of different types of line. And line in itself can be very expressive. And we will actually do another lesson over line next time. So next thing we are going to do examples in our sketchbook. Again, I'm using a full page here, but you could probably make it a little bit smaller. So shape. We have, shape is 2D, okay? That's the big difference. So we have examples like a circle, a triangle. We have squares. I know this is not new news to you. You guys are pros at these shapes by now. And then we also have, those are shapes. Shapes are flat. We also have other shapes that are like ovals, diamonds. We have stars. I do that, and then I go back and I erase the inside line, but it doesn't really matter if you do. We have semicircles, which is like a circle cut in half. A lot of people, when they do and that can also face this way. But a lot of people, when I say semicircle and they draw, they just do that. They don't connect it. But if you don't connect it, it's not a line. Okay, so that's wrong. Looks like a letter C right now. And then we also have another example of a shape is a crescent. Okay, these are all geometrical shapes, okay, which are man-made, essentially, okay, except for like a sphere. A sphere's the example. Those happen naturally in nature. Stars like that are spheres too, so obviously that's going to not be man-made or geometric or organic. So those are shapes, and then we have forms. We have I forgot a few more. Let me come back into the geometrical realm here. We also have a trapezoid. It's 4 sides. So we have a pentagon that has 5 sides. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 4 here. We have 5 here. I'm going to label these because a lot of people might have forgotten what these are. Make sure you label yours too. We have a hexagon, which is 6 sides, and that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then our last one is an octagon. That is 8 sides. That's a stop sign. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. All right. So these are all our geometrical shapes. Okay. Then we have our forms. So there's a couple ways to add form to a shape, and that's by shading and value. There's also by adding more shape sides. Right now, for the most part, it's just going to be adding sides, except for a sphere. So we're going to start with a circle. And when you can do this, you can show this one or two ways. You can kind of do the little dotted lines like that to show that it wraps around. Let me zoom in. Okay. Another way to show this is by adding a shadow here. Okay. And then you could also, going from dark to light, that shows form. And we'll talk more about forms later. But that's one way. So you have sphere. I could write right. That'd help. H. I'm missing my H. Sorry. I'm an art teacher for a reason, guys. I'm not an English teacher or spelling teacher. All right. Then we have a pyramid. Again, this is a man-made geometrical shape that both of these are, but you can do a pyramid by what I like to do is I'll just kind of start with my triangle and then I kind of add like another side going back kind of like that to show that it's a pyramid. And then we, of course, we have a cube, and I do mine, and you could do a rectangular version of it, that's fine. So I'll start with my shape, I'll kind of take the corners back, add a slant, and then I just kind of connect them, okay? And then cylinder, we would start with an oval at the top. We're going to do 2 straight lines down, and then we're going to do a curve at the bottom to show that it's round. Okay? So, there's those. I'm going to come back up here and label a few of these just so that, I'm not going to label those. I know you guys know what those are, but these might show up on a test, so make sure you label them as well. Okay? All right, so again, we have our 2D shapes, which are flat, geometrical shapes, and then we also have our 3D form shapes. Okay, So now that is not all the shapes we have. We also have organic, which is like shapes found in nature. So like a leaf, flower, a rock, a cloud, etc. Okay, and then we have free-form shapes. So these are abstract. So basically, if it's a shape that has no name, it's just a made-up shape, and it could be just sort of whatever. You know, just kind of random shapes. So make sure you have all of this written down and sketched out in your sketchbook before you move on to the next one. This is our shape examples. Okay, make sure they're labeled. Okay, so after you get that done, let's talk about, I'm going to need a new piece of paper. We're going to talk about different ways to use space. And this comes with, make sure you're labeling space too. So there come several different ways to use space within your frame. Okay, so let's draw us a box, and we're going to label this one Draw Big. Okay, so drawing big means that you kind of, you don't have to fill up like edge to edge, but you're going to fill up most of your space. So maybe I have this apple. That's a really bad apple. Let me try that again. I can't sleep if I have that bad. Okay, let's make a prettier apple. Still not super great, but a little bit better. And it fills up most of the space, okay? Most of the space, okay? All right, so draw something. You don't have to draw an apple, but you could draw something in there that fills up that box pretty well. And then we have another way to use our space on our paper, and that is fill the whole paper. This is more like what you'd probably use for a landscape. So I go to edge. I'm doing something to fill up the whole space. A little house, you know, got some trees, whatever. So fill up the whole space. Some clouds in the background. So anyways, fill up the whole paper. That's another way. Again, you don't have to draw exactly what I'm drawing, but just draw something that goes from edge to edge. Okay. We have lines off paper. Now, this doesn't mean you actually draw lines that run outside over here, because normally your paper ends and those lines know where to go. It's more or less that it's like a close-up of something, okay? So if I have a flower and I have these petals, we're just really zoomed into this petal here, or to this flower, that we just can't fit it all within the frame because it's close up. You know what I mean? So they're implied that they kind of go off, but they don't really, okay? Then we have another example. So this one is placement along, or placement in relationship, or in relation to horizon line. So this is going to probably look similar to this, just because I chose to do kind of more of a landscape for this. But this is more talking about the objects and the sizes. Let's see, size of objects. We'll do that. This more or less has to talk about that. So say okay, so we're going to just do this again. We have a horizon line we have this landscape back here, but then we have like these trees that are really close and in to us as the viewer, and so they're bigger. And then as they get smaller and farther, they get smaller as they get farther back. Okay, so maybe I have even a bigger one that's even just like right front of us. But they get tinier as they get farther away, bigger as they get closer up. Yeah, so that's what that's more or less talking to about. We also have smaller in the distance. Okay, so that's the same thing, sorry. Then we have darker, closer up. So value. So this is kind of like atmospheric perspective. So, so we're going to talk value on this one. This is darker, more detail when closer to viewer. So if you have, let's say, what do I want to do for an example? Well, I'll do, you see this a lot. You see like these mountainscapes, and we have all these ranges of mountains, and then we have like them kind of fading off into the distance. So these are going to be darker the closer they are to you. Okay. But then as they get back farther, they're not quite as dark. And then they're really light back here. Does that make sense? So again, darker, closer up. Lighter as it gets further back. Okay? Another way we can show space within our frame is by overlapping objects. And this is kind of similar to this, but you don't have to have a horizon line. You know, maybe I have a group of people, and there's going to be really simple looking people, but we have like maybe a choir, and we have this front row. These are their bodies. Don't laugh, okay? That's okay. These are their bodies, but then we have like, or it's a crowd. It's a crowd of people, and we have more people back here. So it's kind of similar, but you can see that they're overlapping in front of each other. These are kind of overlapping, but really has to do with the horizon line on that. So overlapping objects is another way we can create space and depth. And I've got some other examples over positive and negative space. So I'll go ahead and talk about that. Not really in the realm of creating space and depth, but just another way we use space in a sense in art. So we have positive and we have negative. Okay. Positive space is like, if you remember from your vocab, that is the actual object in the picture. So if we have a drawing of I'm going to just say a bowl. We have a bowl here or a cup. Yeah, let's just make it a cup. We have a cup here. So the cup is positive. Okay. Even if it's sitting on a table, that's also positive. Okay. And then if we have the negative over here, so let's see if I can draw this without. So I guess the negative would be this. This is the positive right here. So this is all the positive, because that's where the objects are. We have the table and we have the cup. Here, this is a negative space because this is the space that's left over. Okay? And this, sometimes there's a trick where if you're having a hard time looking at the positive space, if you shift your vision to look at the negative shape around the positive space, it helps you draw positive space. So that's why we like to kind of know about positive and negative space. Okay? All right, so next we have texture. Texture is a little harder to do because it's easier if you're doing 3D stuff, should I say. If you're doing 2D stuff, it's harder to create it, but it is still possible. You just have to kind of really look at the texture you're trying to create. So, texture. All right, so if we have a smooth texture. So say like we have a glass, just a glass, like a drinking glass. Okay, so we wouldn't probably do anything for the drinking glass. We would want to kind of leave it as it is. All right, we could shade it, but we'd want to do smooth shading. We wouldn't want to do any of our other shading techniques, which we'll learn about later. Maybe we have a rough texture, say like sandpaper. So maybe I've got just this block of sandpaper here. You can create a rough look by just adding kind of dots and little dashes to create a rough texture on something. Okay, I'm not going to fill that all out, but you can. But so that's kind of how you could create a rough. Soft, fluffy would probably be more how you would maybe draw your shape. So say we have a cloud or a cotton sweater. We would probably sort of do it in more how we draw it. And if we shaded it, so I would probably want to shade it. I don't bring any of my shading stuff with me, but maybe we just do some really soft shading, and when we do our blending of values in there, we just kind of let it be fuzzy and out of focus, I suppose. So that can kind of help create a softness, okay? Some other ways, other textures you could do could be like a woven texture. That could be like we go this way and then we just kind of alternate our strokes. And then we kind of just so on and so forth. Almost just like a pattern. I'll do that one more row. Okay. So that could be a woven texture. And then we have sort of a bumpy, lumpy. So that would probably be kind of what you think. Or like a fish scale kind of thing. It's a similar way you would do feathers, something like that. If you had another one that's similar to that, like would be kind of a jagged irregular example, and that would be, just kind of just don't let it be perfect and rough and random, but maybe just have it sharp points versus the roundedness there, okay? So I think like broken wood on that one. There's rigid. Art teacher for a reason, y'all. Okay, so rigid could maybe be probably more boxy, squared off kind of stuff. And that's just an example. These are not all there is. This is just an idea to sort of get you going. We will do another assignment on texture later to give you more practice with it. So make sure you have these examples though in your sketchbook so far. I think that is all I'm going to have time for today. So we will talk about value and color either in another lesson completely, or we'll just do a little quick preview. Actually, I think I've got time. Sorry. Got y'all excited thinking the lesson was over, and it's not. I'm going to go ahead and just do this really quick so you have a quick reference to it. at the front of your sketchbook fire vocab. So we have here value. We're going to start with value. Value is just the change from light to dark, okay? So we're gonna go over this more when we start our shading techniques, but again, it just goes from dark to light. And any good piece of art has a good range of value. Okay, so you can see there is just a bunch of different tones of gray in here. You want probably anywhere between like white and black and probably like 3 shades in between in any good art piece. Okay, it doesn't have to be black and white. It could be like red and black and dark red and lighter red and whatever. So that is an example of value. Okay. And then we have, what was my last one? I didn't. Oh, the color. So color, I'm just going to kind of touch on the color wheel because I've only got 5 minutes left to do my lesson. But we're going to go over this more in our color unit. So this is just going to be a brief, like, preview, I guess, of what we're going to do in color. So we have our color wheel, and I always start with like a triangle. And at these 3, these are our primary colors. These are our main colors. We've got yellow at the top and red and blue down below. It doesn't really matter which side they go in. Those are our 3 primaries. We have to use those 3 colors to mix any other color. You can't mix them either. If you mix them together, if you mix 2 of them together, though, you're going to make your secondary colors. So we have yellow and red make orange. Red and blue make purple. And yellow and blue make green. So those are your main ones. And then if you mix your intermediate and your secondaries together, and these all go in order when you're talking about the color wheel. So when you mix yellow and orange together, you get yellow-orange. Okay? When you mix orange and red together, you get red-orange. We always list our primary color first. Red and purple is red-purple, but I think the term violet came out because that sounds weird, or purple was added later. I don't know, but it's red-violet. So I'll put violet down here as like a, just for remember. Purple, blue-purple, or blue-violet. Blue and violet make blue-violet. Blue and green make blue-green. And then green and yellow make yellow-green. So those are your intermediate colors, but the technical term is tertiary. So, all right, that is the basics of all of the elements of art. Again, this is just a quick overview reference so that you can have that right next to your vocabulary in case you need to refer back to it. Make sure you show me or Mr. Zenos your sketchbook for your participation grade. Thank you.